We have been waiting for this for over a year now, the UniFi Next Generation Security Gateway. Has Ubiquiti finally given some love to the larger networks? Well, probably not, but we're going to see in this unboxing, and we're actually going to go and deploy it on this network here right now. So. Let's get it unboxed and see what we got here. And while I'm doing that, Matt here is going to talk about kind of the specs between the old, USGs, the kind of their older products, the UniFi Security Gateway, and the UDM Pro, and this guy.
Yeah, so currently, and what we're running, and you guys will be able to see today, we're running the UniFi Dream Machine Pro. So we're running the ARM Cortex, and that's a quad-core ARM chip, and that also comes with 4 gigs of RAM currently in the UDM Pro. And it'll be interesting because this thing comes with about half as much RAM and still the same processor from the previous generation. But the thing with this one is we're actually not going to be running any of the apps because the Gateway Pro is strictly just the gateway. There's no applications, no access, or anything like that. So all the applications will actually be back and put back on a cloud key.
That was nice. They gave us an SFP cable.
That was very nice of it. And speaking of that, there only is one, I think there's only one WAN port. I don't know if you can use the gig Ethernet port for a dual WAN, but there are 2 10 gig SFP ports and then 2 1 gig Ethernet ports for LAN and WAN respectively. But
interesting kind of side note, this is different than most of their packaging. So.
What is this, a little design?
I don't see a power cable though. I mean, I'm sure we have one, but
check the box.
Oh, well, that's probably where it is. Yeah. Interesting. So this is $200 more than the UDM Pro. So the UDM Pro is what, $329?
$379.
$379. So this is about $105 more. I stand corrected. They do give us an extra SFP Plus cable. I didn't order that separate, which is nice, but for $125 more, I'm really wondering what are we going to see here? Because we got 2 gigs less of RAM to work with.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And I didn't even know that until after I ordered this. I just kind of assumed it was going to at least have 8 gigs. Like, I remember Noah and I were talking, he was like, bro, it's going to have 16 gigs. And I'm like, for a $500 router, probably 8.
Yeah.
And we were both wrong.
Yeah.
2 gigs in a $500 device.
Will be interesting.
But it is just a router, right? That's going to be the thing, is how much on our network of about 200 users, and we'll say, what we got, 5 switches, about 20 access points, and
couple servers,
a bunch of security cameras, bunch of access control. How much of that bandwidth, if you will, or compute is network and is the network app versus how much of it is strictly routing? I think this is going to do a good job. Yeah. I just question, is it going to do a good job with IPS on a gigabit network of our size? Yeah,
and that's one thing too. Ubiquiti doesn't even include the IDS or IPS specs for this one. Versus the old generation, we had 3.5 gigs was the gigabits per second.
Which was kind of...
Yeah, if you're, but then again, if you're only running a 1, gig WAN connection, it's not crazy. But it'll be interesting to see how this handles IDS and IPS now that it only has 2 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, so. And if why not just let us use the UDM Pro as a firewall, right? Why not just let us do that and turn off the network application and have an extra 2 gigs? We're hoping to see there's some other benefit. Maybe we're not seeing here, but like maybe it's upgradable. That'd be cool.
I don't know. I'm on the Ubiquiti forums every day looking for them to finally release all of their individual applications so I can run them on my own hardware. Yeah. But that would be a nice feat. But yeah, I think their pipeline for software is probably pretty decent at this point.
Yeah. Well, I meant I wonder if this is we get a chance to open this up maybe one day in a different video. I'd like to see is this built in such a way that they could have other models with more RAM? Because that's the thing, we keep getting hammered on the UDM Pros. You look in there and it's like 3.9 gigs of RAM. And again, running a firewall doesn't take a whole lot of RAM or a router. It's the IPS and all the other things that Ubiquiti loves to talk about. But have you got a chance to run this? You want to run the benchmarks on our UDM Pro? I'll get these ears on here.
Yeah, I mean, currently we're going to pull it up.
So context, we are on a gigabit network with Lumen here. And we actually have really low latency. We're about 2 milliseconds to Facebook. We have a dedicated connection. It's actually was an accident. They were supposed to give us a GPON circuit, and they gave us dedicated. But it was a great accident. Yeah, thanks for that accident, CenturyLink, now Lumen.
Exactly.
But I'm going to go ahead and get these ears on. And let's just inspect this thing real quick. I've not actually looked at this yet.
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers and everything from when we were running all services, but I can only assume it's more.
Yeah, for context, we were running
everything
except talk.
Yeah. Yeah, so our CPU is on a good day usually around 30-40% usage, nothing crazy. Temperature is currently running at 42 degrees, and then memory is at about 77% usage right now, which is pretty insane because we've actually even offloaded most of the
applications. No one's here right now?
Yeah, no one's here. I'm only running speed test on like a couple of different devices to pull some bandwidth through to kind of mini stress test it, but yeah, no one's here and it's still pulling 77% of the memory, so it's not, I don't know, it's not looking too good for this having half the amount of RAM, but kind of for context, we're probably running 20-something switches, probably on the lower end, probably 22 switches.
But it's not how many switches you have, it's what you do with them that counts. And we are running what?
Well, I've noticed too, someone was in the forum saying that once they hit 33 switches, once they plugged it in, it bricked the whole network. So
that was on a UDM though, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to run a CloudKey Gen 2 Plus for the...
So I'm wondering if we're going to have the same throughput issues or if any of that will be mitigated through throwing everything on strictly a CloudKey, and we'll be able to hopefully offload some of that static CPU usage that's just taken up.
Isn't the network controller the only application you can now run in your own VMs? Like, or you can run yourself? Obviously, we're going to use a CloudKey in this installation, but like...
Yeah, that's the only one I've ever had to use that I can spin up on like a...
But everything else is now, like video, UniFi Video used to be able to run yourself, but like everything else is you have to have their hardware.
Yeah, and that's why I'm interested to see their software pipeline and them kind of release either all of those as potentially, be nice to see like Docker images for each of those, which would be really cool to run those.
Yeah. Now,
I think that'd be awesome.
What I kind of wonder is now that they've gotten a lot of the layer 3 stuff out of beta, is the philosophy going to be you run, you basically distribute your compute for your different networks so that, I'm curious, like if I say, our VoIP network is on MDF switch 2 or whatever, does that switch do IPS? Does it offload some of the IPS? Because, with software-defined networking, you can really do whatever you want to. So, or is all the IPS on the, like, if that's their move is that you offload that,
then... Well, the way that it's currently doing that is pretty much all on the gateway side. Because it won't, as far as to my knowledge, the IPS and IDS won't really matter if it's internal traffic. It's really when it's crossing the WAN traffic, I believe, is when the IDS and IPS actually starts to work on this. I don't think it's actually doing it at a switch level. I could be corrected, but I don't think it's that
would be what I would think too, unless
that would be nice because that would offload a lot of the usage, and it would only have to inspect so many packets through the router itself, because all of it could be done at a switch level, which would be super nice to do.
Well, there was some talk about, could you have more redundancy through software, right? So if you could have, let's say 2 cloud keys, and you could have like protect redundancy, so that when the
exactly, that'd be awesome.
And that's all software. So maybe it's the same philosophy with this, but I don't know how you do that because a lot of that stuff happens where it crosses to the WAN, right? So but a lot of it's also internal. Like you have the honeypot feature, that's all internal stuff. So we'll see. But actually, we're ready to go rack this guy up, actually, we're gonna do a live upgrade. We're gonna switch over from our I'm gonna keep getting these terms mingled. Our UDM Pro to the next generation security gateway, and then we're actually gonna take our network controller off the UDM Pro and put it on a CloudKey Gen 2 Plus. So we gotta get some sick B-roll of this real quick, but let's go do it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I kind of lied. We're actually not in the server room, that's upstairs. We're in the MDF where the firewall is going to go. So we got to do a couple of things, right? We need to back up our network config. I don't think this runs UniFi OS, so I think it's just going to be like a USG back in the old days.
Yeah, we should just be able to, it should just honestly appear and we should be able to adopt it.
Or watch this thing run UniFi OS, so don't complicate things. But
Yeah, no, exactly.
so you want to grab that network config off of the UDM Pro, and I'll start kind of getting us ready. Okay, now don't judge us too hard. The goal was that everything would be a one-to-one patch here, but unfortunately we have a lot of legacy 24-volt passive cameras, and 24-volt sucks, but we have to keep this switch around, so that's where all this kind of thing goes. But right here is our UDM Pro that is going to go bye-bye. So we actually have to move a lot of these devices away. So I'm going to pop these neat patches off. Hopefully we'll get to do a little bit of cleanup too. It's an ongoing struggle, but I'm going to go ahead and start getting this thing ready to go. I can't take down too much right now until Matthew finishes up that network backup.
Yeah, I'm actually going to start that right now.
So we have fiber here, but we actually do a copper handoff just because our provider adapted it, and that's just what they wanted to do.
And Cody, I downloaded the backup, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's not a network app specific backup, right? It's just the core file, because that contains the network.
There should be a network specific file if you go into the network app.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
Okay. Actually, this is all layer. Well, no, it is layer 3 because you don't have to cross. I was going to say I could take off the UDM Pro, but you won't be able to cross over to the UNVR.
Yeah, so I have the UniFi core backup, and then I also have the auto back.
So let's hop into.
Oh crap! I just downloaded something else.
Oh, you know we're gonna need a dongle for this too, because freaking.
Yeah, you have that?
It's in my office.
Of course, it's in this office. Well,
IPS is off. I'm gonna take down switch 1. Switch 1 is coming off. Switch 1 is coming back. UDM Pro, you want to safely shut it down through the menu, or do we not care anymore?
It's already off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just turn it off.
All right, you can go and pull her out.
The black one in here is to the core switch, right?
The black one in there, yes, it's the core, and the green is the WAN.
Okay, that's fine.
UDM Pro.
Nope.
Wish you could say you served us well, but.
Yeah, really didn't serve us well. USW starting, okay, that's
and
fine.
for all the people that say, well, maybe we just had a dud, this is like at least the second one we had.
This is like the 4th UDM Pro we've ever had in here. All right, we got the back of it.
Everyone else saying your network is a pfSense network. We know, we know. We just don't want to do that.
Yes, we refuse to listen to actually good advice.
If this doesn't work, we're doing pfSense.
Okay. So, this means the bottom one's going to be... Actually, let me pull this back out real quick. It'll be easier for me to get the SFP jack. This Cody almost fumbles half the server.
Everything's fine.
Yes. Did you plug it in, right?
Nope.
All right, you're good.
Is it in?
Yep.
Push in? Okay, I wasn't about to reach.
Awesome. That sounded great.
That was the screw. Oh no. It's one of the worst sounds you can hear.
That sounded amazing.
Hold on, I think I'll find it. You can't have gone too far.
We no have the internet.
I found a cage nut. I dropped this cage nut yesterday. That's good. I found the screw. Hold on. No one saw anything.
Green is WAN, right?
Green is WAN. So this is the DHCP server. So what's this IP going to be?
All right. So it's been a second, but we have everything configured right. It took a second, but luckily we got everything transferred over. So what we did was we plugged the cloud key in alongside the Dream Machine Pro. Then we went ahead and went into the Dream Machine to the network settings, exported that configuration file, went to the cloud key, put that in while they're still both on the same network technically. It kind of took all those devices over and just kind of left the Dream Machine dormant. So once we confirmed that all those devices were now in the cloud key, we just unplugged the Dream Machine out, we put the new XG router in. We went ahead and actually had to sign into that first before connecting it back to the whole network again. So we went ahead, put that here, and just hardwired in, got the old 192 address on it, went to it, and set it up with all of our preferences, connected it to WAN, and then we went ahead and plugged it back into the rest of the network. It saw the cloud key, we adopted it. Actually, in the XG process, you have to select the cloud key before you finish it. So right after you set up the IP address, it will then start looking for a cloud key. At that point is when you plug it back into the network so it can kind of see it. We readopted it. It took 2 tries actually, which was typical UniFi fashion, but we got it up, we got it running, it's all adopted, and everything seems to be fine. So we're going to kind of run some benchmarks on it, and we'll get back to you guys with the results. So yeah.
Okay, so we're back. It's been about a day, and we've kind of got some interesting thoughts. Now, keep in mind, this is not a comprehensive review. This is really an initial thoughts and deployment. So, Matt, thanks for walking us through that. What did you think overall? What stood out to you?
Yeah, so following that transition, one of the first things that I noticed was that when I started using the cloud key solely and kind of getting off the UDM, I'm able to actually open up the network app now and not have it be bogged down and have it glitch out every 5 seconds. So it definitely is a smoother experience on the cloud key side by offloading all of those and strictly having the gateway only do gateway functionalities. Unfortunately, as far as performance, obviously we're cutting the RAM down in half, and we're still running all the IDS and IPS functionalities. So we're not seeing anything crazy in performance. And you guys will be able to see too, but on my screen, the insights are a little bit difficult to read, because if we go over to the cloud key, we can hit the, some of you guys are familiar with hitting the settings icon and seeing your performance with CPU and all that. That's only going to be of the cloud key now because we switched over, so that won't really give us an accurate readout of kind of what the router's seeing on its end. But we're only really sustaining 15% CPU usage on that. We're hitting about 43-degree temp and really only using a little bit more than half the memory. And this is running, our network app with, almost 40 devices on it. It's running Access. It's also running, is it running Talk?
It's not running Talk, but it's running Protect.
Protect, yeah. So it's handling a lot, and it's doing a fantastic job of that. I haven't had any UI issues or anything that we've seen in the past, but unfortunately, if you go back into the router, you'll see this screen where it just says setup's complete, and then there's no real dashboard or metrics of what the router's kind of undergoing. So you have to go back into the cloud key. You have to go to the actual network app and then find it within your devices. And then once you go there will be an insights tab as to, kind of what the device is doing, but there's not a whole lot of breaking down of what services are utilizing what really. So it unfortunately is kind of hard for us to really give you any accurate, statistics on what the router's seeing. But we're seeing about 60% memory usage sustained. The interesting thing is we're only seeing, we spiked up to 28% usage when we first flicked on IDS and IPS.
On RAM or?
On CPU.
On CPU.
Yeah, and now it's, we're flatlining it around like 18% usage on the CPU. So the CPU's really not seeing much activity, but the memory is almost hitting 70%, and that's due to that only having 2 gigabytes of DDR4, unfortunately. So we're not seeing any crazy different performance metrics or throughput. It is very nice, though, that we can now properly manage this device, because before we used to have to restart the UDM, I'd say almost every 2 weeks, because the network UI would just glitch out and we couldn't manage it. So this is definitely an upgrade.
That's how many times you've had to restart it. Me being on-prem here, I've had to restart it almost every other time I have to log into the controller.
Exactly. It's just, it's a great product, but just sometimes a terrible experience.
Yeah, well, I think, so here I got the UDM here. This is our faithful UDM. It goes that way. What is this product designed? Because we're being really harsh here. And we're being harsh because I think we are kind of stretching what UniFi has designed. UniFi has always been weak on the routing front, right? Their switches and APs are amazing, but And you hear a lot of guys just run pfSense as their head, but we've been really stubborn, and we really want a complete UniFi experience because it's delete, simplify, optimize. It's less to manage.
Yeah.
And so this machine is an amazing machine, especially if you are running a coffee shop or you're running a small office, 10, 15, even 20 people. But when you're running a campus that you can have 1,000 people in it, and you're running a ton of security cameras, and you're doing all those things, this is really not designed for that. That's not the clientele for this.
Yeah.
That's the idea, and that was our hope with the next generation security gateways, that would be the next step for Ubiquiti to kind of get to those small campus-sized network. Enterprise guys are going to laugh calling that a campus, but those small enterprise or small campus-sized networks, and being able to have more reliability. Now, for us, at least in this location, the push to do the next generation gateway was not speed. It wasn't performance. It was reliability,
100%.
right? So having to log into your firewall, the firewall at a facility like this should just be a firewall. It should just be the gateway. It should not be a network controller. It should not be doing statistics. It should just be the gateway. And that's what we're seeing so far. Initial thoughts are amazing. Like literally in our testing and just administering over the last day,
For sure.
we have not had to restart it once, and that's unheard of with the UDM Pro.
And I think, like, if you're already on the UDM and you're out in our position of you're really trying to complete the UniFi experience with that campus, this will be sort of an upgrade for you more in that reliability sense. But if you're building out from brand new and thinking a campus from ground up, this is a great product for you because you don't have to migrate from the UDM Pro or have the UDM Pro experience in your back mind. Because if I had the UDM Pro and upgraded to this, I would kind of almost feel a little bit disappointed that I am getting half the RAM now and I'm not upgrading in a sense of, now I can run IDS and IPS at almost 10 gig throughput. We're still seeing the same kind of results, but with, much higher reliability. So if this is a new network you're building from the ground up, this is 100% a great option to do. I recommend doing it this way. If you're going to have 30 plus UniFi devices, AP switches on top of other potential services as well, 100% recommend building it out like that because it's going to scale and be reliable. But unfortunately, if you're in that rock and a hard place of having the UDM but trying to decide if you want to go this route, if your UDM is really reliable, I can't always really recommend it because you're spending more because you have to get the cloud key, you have to get the Gen 2 Plus. You're also spending more on the gateway itself to get almost the same, if not a little bit more performance of what we've seen. But, that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's great for new builds, but for those current builds, it's...
And people might ask, why not just go pfSense? And there's nothing wrong. I've ran pfSense. I learned networking on pfSense. But, for most people and most applications, what the UniFi does in networking, while it's stepped up a lot recently, it's still not truly extensive, is enough. For what we're doing here, and this, like I have not ran into an install that I've done yet that we haven't had the features we've needed in UniFi. Now, that wasn't true up until recently because we, they didn't support multiple public IP addresses. They now support that. You can now say this network, it's this WAN IP, and you can have multiple interfaces, and it works really well actually, and it's really easy to set that up. But who is this for? Well, before we talk about that, what was the experience like? Because the kind of going from the UDM, which has to be the network controller, right? This has to be to, that we kind of and maybe there's better ways to do it. But what was that? Talk about what was that like? And we'll show some screen recording of
that. It's tough because there's really, at least at this point, for us having to troubleshoot it, we're lucky because we've done so many of these before. We really understand how it, the upgrade path works.
How adoption works.
Yeah, exactly. How adoption works, how set and form works, how all that works. But if you're, the single guy running the campus and you kind of want to make this switch, definitely follow what we have in this video for you. But there's really nothing out there to properly document, if you run into this, then that. Yeah, exactly. And
it was a little squirrely, like it was a little...
There were some moments where we were
having two controllers on the same network is...
Yeah. Luckily, like I said, we've done that before and we've understood that to the extent that it works and know how to troubleshoot. But if you're just the single person running the IT show and this has been stable for you and this has been working, then maybe the upgrade isn't worth it for you, and maybe even the added complexity, time, getting a cloud key, all of that. But it's great for us because we've ran the USG before. We understand.
Yeah, we ran the USG Pro before the UDM Pro.
Exactly. So we understand what that cloud key experience was and potentially how to offload that and do it in reverse.
So one question I have is, when we were setting up the next generation security gateway, it actually found the cloud key. How does that work if you're running UniFi in a VM, the network controller on a virtual machine or a server, or even a cloud hosted one?
Yeah, so that might just be manual, and you can do it reverse too, so you can go into the cloud key and manually adopt it once it sees it. And that's actually what we had to do for this, because the XG going out to the key didn't really work as seamlessly as we thought it would. So we actually had to go into the key and manually adopt it through that way, but it ended up working.
And the important bit is to remember, when you're setting this up, your network controller really can't do a whole lot, because one, you've lost your DHCP server, right? So, if you're just setting up the next generation security gateway and you have a cloud key already on your network, you need to go into it and tell it what the range is of your DHCP. You need to configure your WAN. It's the same experience that us who have deployed USGs are used to. It's just a little different now with how adoption works, and it actually sees the control, which I don't think that the USGs before did that.
No.
They did not.
Whenever I've done that, it's just had to been a manual adoption on the cloud key side to get that set up.
For us, it's a win if the reliability is just as there. Because while we've been at the peak of the RAM utilization on this guy, we haven't had any real reliability issues in terms of the network. We just had reliability in terms of logging into the controller. So if that solves this problem, the only question that we're going to have, and time will tell, is, so if this is kind of the step above the UDM Pro, how far can you, where's that point where UniFi is no longer an option? How far can you push it?
Yeah, I'm super interested to see what that next, we may see exactly what we installed today, but now with maybe a quad core, or a quad ARM processor. Maybe even, I was actually surprised when I logged into the cloud key. I didn't actually check the specs of it before we installed it or when you bought it. So I wanted to check. I was surprised. It's an 8-core.
Yeah.
It's got 8 cores, upwards of like
3 gigs of RAM.
3 gigs of RAM, and it didn't even touch half of that. So that cloud key, I was surprised, was like almost beefier than it seemed like the gateway could kind of handle.
I think their move is software optimization.
For sure.
Software optimization and distributed compute. I think the reason why they're going to charge more for the next generation security gateway is, one, fewer people are going to buy it, right? It's also going to distinguish that it's a higher end, it's for a different type of client or a different type of consumer. And it's going to encourage people to buy more UDM Pros, which really ties them into the Ubiquiti ecosystem. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they lose money on these. But, time will tell. Like I said, I'm really excited to see how much can we throw at this, like how big of a network can we throw at the next generation security gateway? Is Ubiquiti going to give us a bigger router? Are they going to say, this is it, your next step is another vendor?
Yeah.
Will we see a change? What I'm really excited about is, a lot of the guys out there like Lawrence Systems, I know they deploy a lot of pfSense for their heads, right? And they do a couple other ones, I think, too, right?
Yeah, they do a lot of, for their sites, they do a lot of actual, UniFi stuff.
But they don't really do a whole lot of UniFi as the heads of routers, unless that's changed recently, I don't think.
I think they do a lot of it for some of the ease of management of it, but
I know,
for the UDM Pros of the world. But I don't think, if I was in that position and was working with them, I almost don't think I could recommend the XG, because the UDM just does it all, and that's their kind of end client.
So that's the real question:
is
the next gen going to be able to replace some of those pfSense deployments?
Yeah,
and we think so, but that's I don't break that in stone yet. We'll see.
Exactly. We'll have to.
But so far, I would say it's the reliability aspect of having the cloud key run our controller is.
Oh yeah, I know. I feel safe about this network now.
It's so much better.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So the question is, what would you guys like to see next? We've actually got a lot of cool tech we could talk about. And this network, this network has actually, we've done a lot of work here. We got 4 doors now on access. We have an AV system hooked up to access. You swipe your cards to turn on an AV system. That's pretty cool.
That'd be a great video.
The amazing things you can do with relays. So, what would you guys like to see? Comment down below.
Yeah, thank you guys.